It's noon here in Ventnor, New Jersey on Thursday, March 16th, and this is news that you can use from CarEdge. And if things look a little different today, well, that's because they are. You know, those computer updates, they always screw everything up, and they did today.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're moving into a world. We're gonna be talking about Chrysler. I'm looking up at the camera like it's up there. We're gonna be talking about Ram, Dodge, Jeep, and Chrysler, and some other automakers, pops, who are struggling mightily to sell their inventory. It's a huge problem that is brewing on the horizon, and we're gonna talk about that. But before we do, all these
Yes.
cars, Dad, are moving towards having more and more software in them. And then a morning like today, we're having all sorts of tech trouble because a system updated and it broke some other stuff. Does that not just scare you a little bit about what's in store for the future?
It's all the tech stuff and all the software stuff that's built into cars has scared me forever. Okay, and it scares me for a number of reasons. One, because something like what, and now one of our systems isn't working properly. So, what's to say when they do that in an automobile that the same thing wouldn't happen and couldn't happen? And the other thing is, the more you have software and computers in your cars, the easier it will become for people to hack into your cars. So, you know what? There are some wonderful things about technology, and then there are some things about technology that will prove in the long run not to be so wonderful. We're dealing with it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, and Duncan's got the right idea. Turn off those automatic updates. Duncan, these are work computers, so they've got automatic updates enabled. And anyway, all right, Dad, let's kick things off. Ram, Dodge, Jeep, and Chrysler. They are in
Yeah.
trouble. And the reason we can say that with some confidence is because when we go to the Cox Automotive data, just came out today for new vehicle inventory,
Yes.
look at what I'm about to show you. Not only is our inventory levels building within the industry
Yes.
at large, the days supply of inventory broken down by manufacturer, the industry average is north of 50, below 60 days worth of inventory. And we're going to talk about what that means in just a second here. But let's zoom in, Dad. Ford,
Yeah.
they've got, let me get my axes right. They've got 70 plus days supply of inventory. Audi even more. Ram over 80 days supply. Lincoln coming in almost at 85 days supply. Dodge, you can't even see them on the screen. They are well over, let's get our axes again, over 100 days supply of inventory at Dodge. You've got Alfa Romeo well over 100, Volvo well over 100, Buick, Jeep, and Chrysler leading the pack with over 130 days supply of inventory. Dad, they've got a big problem at those brands. They can't sell cars.
Well, I don't know that they can't. They're just not at the moment. there, there's a big difference between can't and not. Okay, can't means they don't have the ability. Not means that nobody wants the damn things. Okay, so that's a big difference. Now, could they sell more if perhaps Stellantis decided to up the ante on incentives to both consumers and dealers to move the metal? Yes, I think that would help move the metal. And as I believe they said in the article, you know, some of the manufacturers are sitting around waiting to see who's going to blink first. Well, if Stellantis ain't blinking, that's because they got toothpicks holding their eyelids up. Uh, because it's time to blink.
I
I'm
like this
sorry.
angle on you. You look nice.
I don't know about that. Look like I have the biggest damn double chin that we've seen in the history of humanity. Oh my God. And
All
and
right.
it very well might be reflective of the truth.
So what do you think? Do you think this is that stalemate and it's just Stellantis is going to blink first and they're going to have to offer incentives and lower prices? Or do you think they're stuck here because they've actually decided they're going to create the most expensive trim levels and they're not going to try and incentivize them? They'll just wait. They don't mind if they sell fewer vehicles. They're just going to sell the more expensive ones because that's been the intentional decision from many of the OEMs.
Oh, they're going to blink, and the reason they're going to blink is because as the inventory continues to build at their local dealerships, okay, and the floor plan costs of that building inventory continues to skyrocket, the dealers are going to come at their reps screaming bloody murder, okay, that they're going to want Stellantis to do something about it. What are they going to want? They're going to want dealership incentives. They're going to want customer incentives. They're going to want subvented interest rates or large cash rebates or a combination of the two. But they're not going to just sit idly by and write bigger checks to their banks every month for floor plan interest. They're going to remind Stellantis that they have an obligation to create a market for the product that they've developed. And if they're unable to create that market, then to artificially support that market with greater incentives. Yep. So whether they want to sit there and hold tight, their dealers aren't going to let them. They're going to have to do something about it. And here's the problem. When you look at all the brands that have the most cars, they're the least popular brands, okay? It's not the popular brands that have a lot of cars. It's the least popular ones. The ones that are oftentimes referred to as less desirable, maybe because they have quality issues, maybe because they just have poor histories, whatever it may be. But yes, Stellantis, Buick, Volvo, whoever else was on that list. Chrysler was the worst. That's a Stellantis product. They're going to have to do something about it. And so, you know, it's like that old Kevin Costner movie, if you build it, they will come. Well, you know, what Stellantis is finding out right now is, well, they're building it, nobody wants it. So they know how to spur sales. They just haven't pulled the trigger on those incentives yet, but they'll be forced to.
Let's take a peek, Dad, at some of the data that helps put into scale and perspective how significant the rebound in new vehicle inventory has been. And let me zoom in on this for everyone. The total U.S. supply of available unsold new vehicles stood at 1.8 million units at the end of February, compared to an upwardly revised 1.75 million vehicles at the end of January. Supply is up 68% from a year ago, or 730,000 units higher. That's a lot of cars.
Right there. Stop right there. That sounds like a really big number, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, but here's the reality. In February of 2020, there were 2 million more cars than this sitting on dealer inventory. In February of 2020, it was almost 3.8 million cars in dealer inventory. So even though inventory is up, even though inventory 2019, I'm sorry, even though inventory's up in comparison to last year, it is significantly behind where we used to be. So yeah, 750,000 is a huge number. It's still 2 million short of where we had been, where we used to be, what normal was. Are we ever going to return to that level of normal? No, I don't think so.
It's still a huge number, though, Dad. I mean, I get what you're saying loud and clear. It's nowhere like where we were in 2019 or you know, mid 2010s. Definitely.
Yes.
However, 730,000 vehicles, of each of those being floor planned by dealers, you can just start to see how millions, hundreds of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of inventory are sitting around. People are going to want to sell that. The OEMs are going to want that to move. The dealers are going to want that to move. And I think that's indicative of the next headline that you see there. New vehicle asking prices dipped in January. The reason you're starting to see some weakness in new vehicle pricing is, yes, even though for the full calendar month of February, total new vehicle sales were up 9% from a year ago. That is in part because of a 70% increase in fleet sales of new vehicles. So retail new vehicle sales were closer to being flat. So you're seeing flat demand and you're seeing supply that's up 70%, 68%. This is one of the aspects of the car market right now that is making sense. That then means if supply is up and demand is down, then the prices go down. We are starting to see that.
Yes, prices dropped at $700 over the previous month or from the previous month, but the average transaction price is still just under $48,000. And my suspicion is that if we look at the inventory levels more closely for Stellantis brands, especially the Ram brand, you're going to see that the vast majority of that inventory that's sitting is high-priced trucks. Okay, and when I say high-priced trucks, well over $50,000, probably in the $60,000 to $80,000 range would be the majority of them. So there, the amount of price drop it would take to make those affordable for more people would be substantial. You might have to, at one time, incentives accounted for about 10% of average transaction prices. And I believe last month it was up to 3%, still down 7% from where it had been. But for Stellantis to start moving some of this high-priced metal that they have, the Ram trucks, the Jeep Wagoneers, the Jeep Grand Wagoneers, they're going to have to get back closer to that 10% level in order to encourage people to go out and buy them, especially when you think about the fact that the cost to finance one of these vehicles has gone up dramatically in the past 2 years. We went for a better part of a decade, slightly more than a decade, where interest rates were at unbelievably historic lows, and now they're getting back up to what would have been normal interest rates prior to the Great Recession. So you can't combine high prices and high interest rates and have affordability for the vast majority of people. Those two things don't all go together. So yes, they're going to have to start incentivizing the sales of their vehicles, especially the higher priced ones. Hopefully, they see what's going on and they start thinking to themselves, it's time to produce the more affordable vehicles again.
It's not a hope. We know they're doing it. Honda bringing back entry-level trim, GM intentionally stopping production so that they can just justify having more expensive vehicles. So, no, I mean, these OEMs know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, but it's everybody's going to come to the conclusion that we've raised the prices too high, or we have spent too much time producing just high profit margin, high priced vehicles. And yeah, Honda's bringing back lower trim levels, but this means that Stellantis is going to have to start producing in much larger numbers their lower trim level vehicles. The idea of really judiciously using the chips that you have to only produce high profit margin vehicles that's going to have to take a back seat to the reality of the situation, that okay, we have to start producing lower profit margin vehicles, I don't know, so we can sell some.
Now, Dad, let's look at a little bit more of the data. It backs up what you're saying. Aside from low volume, high performance cars, vehicles with the lowest days supply are mid-size, compact, and subcompact cars. Supply for mid-size trucks has dropped to the low end, likely due to the slow launch of a redesigned Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon. Compact SUVs are also at the low end. And here you go, Dad. Except for niche uber luxury, full-size luxury, and sports cars had the highest inventory, followed by full-size pickup trucks at 79 days supply, which is down and not out of line for pickup trucks because they come in a wide array, of configurations. Notably, niche segments show wild fluctuations in days supply due to low sales. No, the reason that full-size pickup trucks are at an 80 days supply is because the average transaction price to buy a full-size pickup truck is probably north of $65,000 when you add it all up, which is insane for a full-size pickup truck.
Yes, it absolutely is. And as we've been saying for months and months and months, you can't keep raising the prices and hope that the middle class can keep coming along and spending that kind of money, because they can't. And not only can't they have
They
chosen
won't.
not to. Okay. So this is a situation of can't versus won't. Okay. Um, Not only won't middle class people keep riding the escalator up to higher priced vehicles, they just can't. Okay. It is no longer affordable for them to take an 84-month note at $800 or $900 a month for a $65,000 pickup truck, where they're paying back $85,000. I mean that is that math doesn't work for the vast majority of potential buyers out there. So, yes, there was a time and has been a time where manufacturers were able to get away with this when interest rates were lower. Um, but that time, at least in my mind, seems to have passed. And they're going to have to reevaluate what it is that they're building and how it is that they intend to move the metal. It Go ahead.
One more piece of information I want to look at, which is DMAs, and so geographic trends that we're seeing. And
Yes.
then, Pops, I want to go to a really, you got to be kidding me. But I agree with you entirely. I think this year, 2023, will be incredibly interesting to look at how this industry changes and how
Yes.
OEMs and dealers have to evolve. So I agree with you. We're in the midst of significant changes. By DMA, which is a marketing area,
Yes.
California and southern DMAs had the lowest inventories. Northern ones had the highest. San Francisco, San Jose had the lowest inventory based on days supply, followed by Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Daytona Beach, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, all with less than 50 days supply. Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Detroit had the highest supply at 70 days, followed by Denver and Chicago. Things in this market are regionalized. Different trends are happening in different locations. This is why we give you days supply information on the CarEdge car search, so that when you're searching for a car in your area, it'll show you within a 100-mile radius what the days supply for those vehicles are.
And if I may, that's all weather related. Okay, where it's warm, okay, there's a lot more car sales going on than where it's ice cold. And that's been going on forever. Okay, that part hasn't really changed. That's why it's called a spring selling season. Okay, because as things start to warm up, consumers come back out from hibernating in their homes and start making major purchases again. So that historically has been, I mean, you could look back probably 50, 60, 70 years, and that historically will be borne out by data. So that doesn't surprise me in the least.
Let's switch gears here, Dad. Thoughtful contribution from Ranger
Thank you.
117.
Yeah.
Thank you. How will car companies, the automakers, and dealerships operate if there's an economic collapse, mainly banking? I think you're starting to see how these automakers are thinking about this. I bet you we see more. This is my 2 cents. I bet you we see more and more incentives. And every month when we look at the new car sales, we are going to see average transaction prices come down, because as lending requirements become more strict and access to credit becomes more difficult, you're going to see captive lending programs become more aggressive to actually get people into vehicles, and prices come down to meet lending guidelines. So my expectation is that you'll see some easing as a function of trying to move inventory, and the OEMs and dealers being complicit to that, helping in that.
Absolutely. Let's realize that we are 5 days in, 6 days in to what has become somewhat of a banking crisis because of what happened with the 3 banks recently,
Yeah.
and Credit Suisse, and it's been reflective in Europe as well. Herd mentality is to overreact. And that's probably what we're seeing. Now, what you have to realize is that car dealers are typically reactive and never proactive. And my suspicion is that car dealers didn't see any of these banks failing as something that they expected to see happen. Now, if the federal government is stepping in to ease fears of the consumers in this country, that your banking will be safe. You'll be able to keep your money in the bank. The government will guarantee it. We're going to make everybody whole. Hopefully, that eases most people's fears. Now, if there's a major run on the banks, I don't know, that could lead to a depression, damn it. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But there is that thing called herd mentality, and a lot of people just, they panic. They panic when they shouldn't panic. Okay. I mean, we saw it with COVID. Why were people stocking up on 3 years worth of toilet paper? Okay. People
But
panic.
don't you think, Dad? Don't you think this will drive? Again, this will just hurt demand, and this will drive OEMs who are overproducing vehicles that are really expensive to simply drop prices. Supply and demand. That's what it all comes back to.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's always been about supply and demand. It always will be about supply and demand, and we know that the supply is 2 million vehicles less than what it was just 4 years ago.
730,000 more than it was this time last year, though.
Yes, but
hey, you said something that I found interesting. You said that car dealers are reactive. But
yes.
Dad, I don't know if you know it. Some automakers, they're actually quite proactive. And if it's okay with you, I'd like that to be our intro into.
Really? You gotta be kidding me.
Now, the automaker that I'm alluding to, Pops, that would be our friends over at Ford. See, they are not reactive. They are proactive when it comes to recalls and issues with their vehicles. They're all for it, Dad. I posted this on Twitter this morning. Ford, where quality is job number one. We now have 1.3 million Fusions and Lincoln MKZs being recalled from 2013 to 2018 model year. And Dad, the next tweet in the thread, I know you're a big Twitter thread kind of guy.
Yeah.
This is the leaderboard, folks. We're going to be updating the leaderboard all year long. If you remember last year's NHTSA recall leaderboard, Ford won in a runaway. They really took number one on the podium last year. And so far, Dad, Ford off to a strong start. 2 million vehicles already under recall in just 2023 recalls.
And may I suggest that their new tagline is Ford, where quality is job none. Okay. It's no one's job. No one really cares about it. We'll speak about it occasionally. We're going to say we're committed to it, and we're going to prove at every opportunity that we're really not. And I know people get mad at me because I take shots at Ford all the time, but there's one thing that you don't want to be leading the league in, and that's recalls. And they lead the league in recalls every year. Now, you can extrapolate whatever you want out of that, okay? But it would indicate to me that they don't really pay that much attention to the quality, and they're not that concerned about it. And their thinking is that there's enough Ford fans out there, even with recalls, even with the fact that so many Ford customers are on a first name basis with their service advisors because they see them so often, that they will continue to support the brand, because they just love Ford, and they just love their service advisor. They're like family.
Got to, man. Got to. Hey, couple comments that came through in the chat. Want to let everyone know that at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we're actually going to be on Farzad's channel. So I'll drop the link in the chat here in just a second, doing another show, about a 60-minute show at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we're super excited about that. Dropped the link in the channel. And Ricky Tomatoes, Dad, Ricky Tomatoes in the house with us, says you should get CDG on your show. I was actually just talking to CDG the other day. Super excited he's coming to YouTube. Here's the deal, guys and gals. We are actually organizing, sent out an email this morning to a handful of folks. We're doing an automotive roundtable. At least I'm trying to organize it. So I'm going to be moderator, and we're going to get a bunch of folks, my dad being one of them, Brandon from Car Question Answered, where he's in. I've asked Lucky Lopez from Automotive Life to join us, and Craig from Flying Wheels. We're going to get, hopefully, within the next week or two here, over on the CarEdge channel, our first automotive roundtable. Probably like a 60-minute discussion about the industry. I'll moderate. I'll let all the smart folks on the screen do the talking. And if that goes well, maybe we can get CDG on, maybe we can get the TFL team on. I would love to be the platform where we can interview these folks and get the roundtable going.
And I would say that, you know, maybe if CDG would agree to do it, we can do it like 60 minutes, and we can black out his face and we can distort his voice so that nobody can figure out exactly who he is until he is ready to declare himself publicly on his new YouTube channel.
All right, so here's the deal. I'm fairly certain you just somehow changed your audio because now it's coming through very strange to me. So let's call it a show. And then let's go do all of our technical troubleshooting because we had quite the challenge today getting today's show out there, but I'm glad we did it. I will do the outro in case the audio is a little wonky. We will be back tomorrow, supposedly, at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m.
I fixed it. It's back to Scarlet, baby. I figured out how to fix it. I must say that I am slowly becoming a tech savant. Okay, maybe not.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow, noon
Yes,
Eastern,
indeed.
9 Pacific. Thank you, Dad, for fixing your audio. Go for it.
And I have to say, we'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern, 8 a.m. Alaska time, because Alex asked me to put that throw in there. So for those of you viewing us in Alaska, all three of you, we'll be on at 8 a.m. your time tomorrow morning.
All right, let's try and figure out. Yeah, and this is Car Question Answer. You're welcome when Brandon joins for the roundtable as well. I'm just saying we can get the whole family on.
Yes.
Pops, let's figure out your camera situation, okay?
Yes. Let's get to work so that we can come in properly on our next broadcast.
See you guys
Thanks,
tomorrow.
everybody. Thanks. I'm waving to the wrong camera. Thanks for being here.